Okay, it says I'm live streaming. Hello, AF community. I hope I'm in the right place. I'm going to try to check that it's showing up where I think it's showing up. Yeah, it looks like it. Yay. Hello, it's Dr. Ginny Trierweiler here. I'm here to talk about the truth about moderation as I see it, both as a psychologist and as someone who loved the idea of moderating everything and tried with alcohol and sugar and processed foods, etc. So I talk about those two things like they're the same thing just about, even though that may not be true for some people. I find it's true for a lot of us. I specialize in working with women in their 40s, 50s, 60s, etc., who feel like I've got to do something about my eating and my drinking and my weight. So I'll tell you a little bit more about my Slander for Good program at the end. But first, let's just talk about this whole idea of moderation, because it seems like such a great idea, right? It just seems like the right thing to do. We should moderate everything. It sounds very reasonable, right? One of the things that I think is we really want to get to this more empowered, like, this is my choice. I've thought about it. This is my choice. When it comes to my approach to eating and drinking, I had gotten to the place where I was super devoted to the really indulgent kind of way of eating and drinking that I did every day. It felt special. It felt like this is self-love. And I just really felt like this is not going well, actually. This is not making my life as great as it should be, given that I do this every day. I have this special eating and drinking every single day, right? And it wasn't turning out very well for me. I was 60 pounds overweight, and everything I knew about weight loss wasn't working anymore. I'm going to eat less. I'm going to exercise more. Not working year after year. I'm going to moderate my drinking. That wasn't working very well. I'm going to moderate my sugar. It's a pretty vague idea, right? So let's talk about what's the truth about it. Seems like a great idea, but why does it turn out to not be a great idea for a lot of us to like moderate our drinking, right? So if you're doing the alcohol experiment this month, if you're on day 28, that's the idea of doing this talk today. You're not the same person, right? You have new information. You're more empowered to make your own choices and decisions when it comes to drinking. A lot of us get to this point and are like, yeah, I really don't feel like I'm making my own decisions still, right? So at this point, it's important to talk about moderation. And at This Naked Mind, the idea is moderation may be possible. We're not going to say you have to quit drinking before we even want to talk to you. It's not like that, right? A lot of us are going to find quitting drinking altogether, just abstaining, just makes our lives so much better. But we don't have to come into it with that understanding. And it may not be true for 100% of us. What is my eye doing? All right, so the idea of everything in moderation sounds great. And there might be some people who do find moderating their drinking. I have a super skinny, super disciplined friend who's older than me. I'm 64 now. She's probably several years older than that. She does marathon biking. She's always been skinny and always been disciplined. And so she feels like, she's got it figured out. And she drinks alcohol sometimes. As far as I can tell, she doesn't drink it to excess. It's not easy for us to tell, right? But as far as I can tell, I have a friend who has an immediate negative reaction if he drinks any alcohol. He gets the flush, the worst symptoms that we might get if we keep drinking all night. He gets them immediately. So he doesn't have enough time to enjoy the pleasure of it. So he has no trouble. Well, that was fun. Zoom just crashed on me. I was about, 5 to 10 minutes into the talk. All right, we're talking about moderation today, but hopefully Zoom will hold up for me this time. Anyway, okay, looks like I'm live again. Hello. Talking about moderation and the idea that it's just such a great idea to moderate everything. We should moderate our drinking. We should moderate It's interesting to me when I think about it, that idea seems to only go with things that are bad for us, that we kind of know are bad for us. Like I never say I need to moderate my Brussels sprouts, right? I'm just overdoing the Brussels sprouts because there's probably no excessive amount of Brussels sprouts. I also think about foods like that, like real berries and apples and Brussels sprouts. They sort of have speed bumps. Like they sort of have this natural, there's no way I'm gonna eat too much of that. Maybe some people could, but I had to moderate the things that are highly processed, that tend to have addictive properties and to be non-nutritious. So I find that very interesting. I talk about eating and drinking like they're the same problem because they pretty much were the same kind of problem for me. So you'll always hear me talk about it like that, and maybe that'll be helpful to you, and maybe you'll be like, well, I don't have to moderate my eating. I do great with eating. Like a lot, I have to say, a lot of my clients who are women in their 40s, 50s, 60s are feeling like I'm overeating certain things and maybe undereating certain other things. And it's just like with drinking in a lot of ways, right? All right. So let me see why. So some people like us who have had some kind of trouble with our drinking, we start researching what would moderation look like? How can I moderate this better? What would help me moderate it better? I had the idea, I need to be a little careful with how much I drink. I need to moderate it. I had that idea for probably 30 years or so. And sometimes I felt like I was doing all right with moderating. Sometimes I felt like this isn't going very well. And it was very upsetting and distressing, right? So can people like us who have had some kind of trouble with our drinking, we have found we are drinking more than we want to be drinking, and it's not really serving us, can we moderate our drinking, right? So I think the answer might be yes, if we're willing to put a lot of attention and vigilance on it and like regular assessment. Let's see, I said I was only going to do 2 drinks on the weekend and never more than that. Am I still doing that, right? Every time I did that, kind of setting some parameters, I violated them. It wasn't working to moderate drinking. Most of us are going to find moderation is more trouble than it's worth. So why is that? I want to just kind of run through the reasons why that is. My background's as a psychologist, so a lot of the way I talk about this comes from that kind of learning, from neuropsychology, from study of addiction, etc. But here's one of the points is I'm going to do this in moderation. Very vague idea, right? Very vague. It requires a lot of thought. Well, what is too much? How would I know I did too much, right? So a lot of us researched how much is too much? How much can I drink before it's considered to be affecting my health, or before it's considered that I have a problem with addiction, right? So I was always researching the answers to that. It was interesting because there's all these health institutions that are, kind of trying to answer that for us. Well, I think 1 per day. So I heard this for quite a while. 1 drink per day for a woman, no more than 1 drink per day, no more than 7 drinks in a week. When I was like, shut up, I do that, I do that not every night, but within 2 nights, I've done 7 drinks. That's where I was. So that didn't seem to apply to me. That seemed way too hard. If I tried to do that, I couldn't do it, right? And then some of the people, like the American Cancer Society, I think it was, who had said 1 drink per night for women, no more than 1 drink per night, no more than 7 per week, started saying, actually, we don't think there's any safe amount of alcohol when it comes to cancer risk. Well, come on. I still have clients telling me, oh, my doctor, my nurse, my, et cetera, my naturopath, all say it's fine to have some alcohol. And I think that's because they are trained within the industry supported institutions, right? So the chairs, the endowed chairs at the universities come from the food industry and the beverage industry and the hotel and restaurant industry, right? That's where a lot of the money to fund the programs is coming from. So those industries are very much shaping how they're getting trained. So unfortunately, if our doctors and our nurses, et cetera, are all saying it's fine if you drink a little, I think they're mistaken. I think it's not healthy for any of us. And most of us are going to end up drinking more and more over time. So this principle being, it's very vague. What does moderation mean? And one thing it means is you're always having to make decisions, right? So every decision we make fatigues us. It saps our energy. It makes us tired and cranky. That's one reason I help women change their eating habits. And having to think again about your eating feels a little like, oh, I shouldn't have to think this hard. And we really do want our eating habits to be very habitual. So changing our eating habits requires this kind of extra attention and energy for a little while. Oh, this is what I'm doing differently now. But then it has to start getting really habitual and easy again, because we can't have to think this hard about our eating and drinking every day. So if I'm trying to moderate, let's see, is this a drinking day? How many did I say I could have? What do I have to do tomorrow to make up for that? What about Monday? What about next week when I have that wedding, etc.? It's fatiguing to have to be constantly trying to think about and manage the amount that you're drinking. This really, really does matter. Like if you feel low energy, check if there's parts of your life where you're just having to make more decisions than make sense, right? So here's an example of some research supporting this. There were 3 different experiments, 504 participants, and it showed that people estimated a moderate amount of drinking to be however much they were drinking, and a moderate amount of sugar to be however much sugar they wanted to eat, right? So what does moderate mean? Whatever we want it to mean, right? Research shows that the more we like a food, the bigger the serving we consider moderate, right? So what's a moderate amount? It reminds me of the old joke, how do you define promiscuity? It's anyone who's getting more sex than I am, because the amount I'm getting is really the normal amount. This is something we find a lot. So this also relates to the research about, there's a lot of research, marketing research about there being too many options, meaning people just won't buy. So there was this famous study of jams. So there's somebody at the farmer's market selling 4 options of jam flavors, and there's somebody selling 40 options. And people are very drawn to the 40 options, but they don't buy. Why is that? They approach 40 and they're like, oh my God, well, maybe this one, well, maybe that one, I don't know. There's so many options, I'm not sure what to do. I know if I am gonna go buy a new car, this is something I'm gonna be facing pretty soon here, I really want to narrow it down to exactly what I want before I go to the dealership, right? It's really gonna help. And also know how much it should cost. Anyway, so having too many options is fatiguing for us. And the idea of, well, we'll just see how I feel. What I feel like eating tonight, what I feel like drinking tonight can be a really terrible guide. There was a 2015 study of about 7,000 people, and it showed that the people who kept their diet within a limited set of healthy foods had the best outcomes, versus the people who ate a broad, diverse array of foods that included processed foods. Those people experienced weight gain over time, an average 120% increase in waist circumference on average after 5 years. So really limiting our food to the healthy foods makes this huge difference. It made a huge difference for me and hundreds of people that I get to watch on a regular basis. So the idea of moderation, we'll see what we think. We'll just try to moderate this, not overdo it. It seems to imply reasonableness and restraint, right? It's a simple idea. It has a lot of appeal. There's this cultural value on everything in moderation, but it's so relative as to be meaningless. It's no guideline at all. We need clearer guidelines than this, things we can measure rather than trusting our judgment when we're hungry or angry or tired, right? Etc. So how much is moderate when it comes to non-nutritious foods? I want to just give an example here. So sugar, almost not everybody, but a lot of the people I work with feel like I really try to moderate my sugar. I really don't eat that much sugar. But I think we're off we're thinking I don't eat much sugar compared to other people or compared to how much I could eat. But here's why I think our assessment of this is really off. So the amount of sugar the average person was eating in 1700, all kinds of sugars, right, added to our foods, etc. The amount of sugar in 1700 was 4 pounds per year. Probably, that was probably more than people used to eat thousands of years ago, but it doesn't sound bad. Now, by 2012, the average amount of sugar a person was eating in United States culture, in American culture, was 180 pounds per year. So you could be doing way, way, way better than the people around you and still probably be getting way more sugar than you realize, right? I feel like I was eating about 1/4 the amount of sugar as other people were eating. Well, it turns out that's still probably 10 times more than my body can actually handle, 10 times more than people were doing 300 years ago. So I think very excessive by human standards. All right, I might be freaking you out about this, but I can't help it. I had to really tackle both sugar and alcohol. So what's a moderate amount? How do we know? So both of these things break our hormone functioning related to hunger. So a lot of people feel like, oh, I'm so scared to lose weight because all I'm doing is trying to eat less and less and less, and I feel hungry all the time. First of all, that's a terrible approach to losing weight. It's in a sustainable way. That's not how our bodies work. But also, eating sugar, drinking alcohol, they break the hormone systems that tell us whether we're hungry or we're satisfied. And I think of it like this, right? So it's like if I eat and drink a bunch of non-nutritious stuff, I'm crowding out the nutritious stuff. And my body and my brain say, keep going. We didn't get any nutrition there. Keep going, keep going, keep going. So we're finding this kind of breakdown in insulin functioning. So a lot of people, more than probably realize, are becoming insulin resistant, and that is driving fat storage. And that's part of what happens when we mess up these systems. The other thing that happens is we get like this insatiable kind of hunger. Like I just feel hungry all the time. So people think I'm just going to feel hungry when I'm working on dropping weight. And that's because they're using the wrong approaches and their hormone system that regulates hunger is messed up. All right. So in terms of it being really vague, moderation is a bad idea, right? Moderation also doesn't make sense from a physiological perspective. So we know alcohol creates a thirst for itself. It's neurochemically addictive. So that means we get a big boost of dopamine, like these pleasure chemicals in our brain. And here's something I think a lot of people don't understand, that when I started looking at it, I knew this from my studies of neuropsychology. Any big dopamine hit in our brain creates a salience effect. Salience means important. Oh, that seems very important. That seems very relevant to survival, actually, right? So our primitive brain gets this, wow, this is really important. Pay attention to this. Figure out where you got it because you're going to want to get it again tomorrow because it seems important for survival, right? So it tricks our brain into feeling like alcohol is important for our survival. This is terrible. Alcohol is harming our health. It's giving us an addiction to live with every day, and it's driving this feeling of get more, get it tomorrow again. So when I sat and thought about that fact, I realized what that's driving is addiction. I don't want addiction in my life. And that became one of those things I wrote down and I prayed about every day and I journaled about every day. You're feeling this drive. It feels important. Like I really want it. I really feel like I need it. That's addiction. And as soon as you start to get a break like an extended break from this addictive substance, that feeling of importance and salience and anxiety will go away, right? So that really helped me. Here's the other thing that happens that really drives addiction is your body perceives this excess dopamine as things are getting out of balance. Your body really wants balance and homeostasis. So your body starts working on correcting the excess. So you might have heard this idea that when you're getting this excess dopamine hit, then pretty quickly your body sends these depressive chemicals. That was like too much dopamine. We're going to send dynorphin. We're going to send a chemical to counteract the dopamine, right? So that's part of what happens, where the first 20 minutes after having a drink, you're feeling kind of happy, and then you're starting to feel kind of anxious and uncomfortable, and you want another drink. Oh, this makes me mad. What a trap this is, right? There's another thing that our body does with this excess dopamine response, which is it starts to block the receptors for dopamine in our brain. So it becomes more difficult for us to experience pleasure anywhere in life. And we keep chasing that high, right? We keep chasing that happy feeling that we're used to. Like I watch myself have a whole bottle of wine and then want a little more. And I feel like this is excessive, but I'm just trying to get that feeling back. Addiction. So for me, wanting to get out of an addicted state with an addictive substance that was harmful to my gut and my hormones and my brain became motivating enough to, just abstain for a period of time. I decided on a year. I knew that would give enough time to really see, how does that change how I feel? How does it become easier? How does it change my sleep and my energy and all these things, right? And then at the end of a year, I'll reconsider, do I want to take up drinking again? And, a lot of us do at some point go, I think I can drink again. And then, feel like I'm moderating pretty well. I'm doing pretty well with this. And pretty soon it starts escalating again, right? So this is just physiologically what happens in the human brain with an addictive substance like alcohol. It's not something wrong with you. It's what the human brain does to protect us, what the human body does to protect us. I started feeling like I want to love my body more than this, instead of, look, I'm going to put some poison in there, but just be cool with it, okay? Don't give me any kind of sickness or anything. Like, I'm sorry, body. I'm going to quit trying to tell you not to get sick, and I'm going to start noticing you get sick when I give you alcohol. You wake up at 3 a.m. in a panic, right? I can feel the toxins in my system. I can't exactly rush them out. It's just my body's going to have to deal with it. That is having an impact on my health. All right. So it's just so natural. We get this high and then we get this low. And then we want the high again, right? And we're not getting any kind of balance in our system. The effect of having one drink is to want more. Right? It's changing our brain. So it's harder to experience joy in life, pleasure in life, right? So many, I've worked with hundreds of people now on changing their drinking. And there's this real fear. This is going to be terrible. I'm going to feel this terrible misery forever now. Like, it feels like I'm never going to feel good again. And that's because of what happens in our brain when we're using this addictive substance over and over. Is dopamine is now blocked and it's hard to feel pleasure. That comes back, it reconstitutes, it's gorgeous. But in those early moments, it can feel like, I don't think I'll ever feel pleasure again, right? By the way, our brain reacts in a very similar way to sugar. All right, so we have two things so far. Moderation is problematic because it's super vague. We can really fool ourselves. Moderation is problematic because of what the addictive substance does in our brain that makes it hard for us to moderate, right? Here's another thing, is alcohol impairs your ability to stick with your intentions. One of the things we enjoy about alcohol is it slows down our thinking, right? And that slowdown in our thinking means partly it's shutting down our good judgment. We know this. we start drinking and our good judgment goes out the window, right? I mean, we don't know it at the time. We don't have good self-observation at the time. But I might go into drinking saying, I'm just going to have one drink and that's it. And pretty soon I'm just going to have another one. And I have good reasons for it. I'm going to make the excuses. But that's part of what alcohol does in our brain, is it makes it hard. It impairs the part of our brain that has good judgment, our frontal lobes, right? I've been watching these cop cam videos where they're pulling over drunk drivers. It's amazing how drunk people are, and they don't see themselves as drunk. It's partly because it's shutting down our ability to observe ourselves and use good judgment. Right? It has a sedating effect on the part of our brain that has good judgment, where our higher intentions reside. And how many of us just throw out all our good intentions about our eating when we're drinking, right? Number 4, alcohol makes us thirsty. I remember seeing pictures of a wheat beer that I liked that was always shown in the marketing pictures with an orange slice with some, condensation on the side. And I thought, oh, that sounds so refreshing. If I was thirsty, I was drawn to it. But that's marketing, right? That's lying to us, because it's actually a diuretic and it's dehydrating. And that's another thing that makes us reach for the next drink. For me, I started trying to recognize your body is craving water, right? And you've convinced yourself water isn't good. Water's boring. I only want something that's sweetened or something that has alcohol in it. So I just really wanted to shift my whole mindset from what the marketers and the industry is trying to sell me that was most profitable, but stealing my health. I wanted to shift my brain towards actually starting to be drawn to the things that my body needs. So yeah, I just realized my body's craving water, my body's craving food. I keep giving it this addictive, non-nutritious stuff. Like, I want to change my approach. All right, so alcohol numbs our response to normal stimuli, things that we have found pleasurable, right? Like you ever remember just going out for a bike ride, just going out for a walk in the park, just petting your dog, enjoying a meal with your family, sitting in the sun, listening to birds. These were all pleasurable experiences. I feel like so many of my pleasurable experiences just faded into the background. I remember I grew up, I loved reading novels, and that just fell away. I wasn't doing that anymore. It's like one of these simple pleasures in life that really did give me a pleasure, right? A joy, just kind of went away as alcohol played a bigger role in my life, right? So I talked about the biochemical reasons that cause that our brain starts blocking the dopamine receptors. Like, we're getting a little too much dopamine here, we're gonna block those off. Well, now everything in life is a bit boring and gray. I always think about a friend that I knew 30 years ago. He had gotten involved with heroin as a way of escaping the Vietnam War. And it was kind of shocking to me. I didn't know anyone who did heroin. So I asked him if he would tell me about it. He said, let me tell you this, once you've had heroin, everything else in life is gray. The only time you feel good is when you're doing the drug. Okay, I thought that sounds a little too much like how I feel about my eating and drinking every night. Like, all day is kind of gray. I start getting anxious and excited, and then I get to have my wine and my food, right? And then the rest of the day, then I feel sick at night. Then I get up in the morning and go back to the gray part of the day, just fighting to get to the part of the day where I get to eat and drink like that. So here's one of the sixth point I have about this is when we drink more, we don't get more pleasure. We get more cravings. We get more anxiety. We get more wanting, more drive, but not more pleasure and more liking, right? We feel like I'm going toward the pleasure. That's the kind of feeling dopamine gives of, yeah, I get a hit of pleasure and then I just want more. I don't get more satisfaction and joy. I just get more wanting. So that's one of the interesting things about this chemical is it's supposed to give us drive. It's supposed to be what helps us get up in the morning and go do stuff, right? And then we end up with an addiction in our lives, very understandably, and all we do is feel driven toward the next buzz, right? Right. And the buzz, the pleasure actually gets to be less. So we're like chasing it, right? All right. Yep. So instead of thinking of this as the pleasure chemical now, psychologists think of this as a chemical of attention, of salience. It's a chemical that tells us whatever that was, it seems like it must be important. It gave a big dopamine hit. So this triggers a survival response. So our brain says, remember where you got that so you can get more tomorrow, right? So breaking out of this is a matter of, part of it is abstaining for a period of time so you get your functioning brain back. And part of it is starting to notice other more moderate kinds of pleasures coming back, like sitting in the sun, listening to the birds. Oh man, did I have to force myself to do that? But it gave me this kind of, it's more of a serotonin kind of chemical is what we discover. It's more of a calm, peaceful, moderate kind of pleasure. So yeah, I feel like my life has so much more joy and pleasure in just the simple moments, as opposed to this drive for the excess and then the recovery from the excess. Does that make sense? So yeah, alcohol became more important than I wanted it to, and it stayed very important for a long, long time. Not because we decided, I didn't decide to make it important, but because that dopamine response hijacked my brain. It just took over way more of my life than I wanted, right? So can you see there's a bunch of reasons why any kind of regular drinking as moderation can become a trap. It's because of how our brain is wired. It's because of how addiction responses work, not because of some flaw in us. So any idea you have, like normal people can just drink normally, they can just moderate, and I want to be that person, I think you're kind of going for what tends to be a lie. We don't know. I mean, nobody was telling me you're drinking too much, Ginny. It's partly because I would have 2 drinks with them and then go have the rest at home. I had this drive to get home. I got to get home and have some more drinking and some more eating that I'm not going to do in front of other people. So we don't know how many people are struggling with this at all, right? So first of all, the assumption that people can drink normally without trouble may be wrong in a lot of cases, but certainly for those of us who have had trouble with it, trying to moderate again is a situation where you're going to just have to put a lot of attention on it, right? You're playing with an addictive substance. You're trying to fight your own brain, right? Maybe you're buying into marketing that this toxic addictive substance that's highly profitable to certain industries is a great tool for self-care. That's something I bought into. I was succumbing to these marketing and cultural pressures that completely underestimate the risks of drinking alcohol. I was buying into the idea that self-indulgence is self-care. This is loving myself. I deserve this. You catch yourself saying, I deserve this. I stop. Wait, what am I saying that about? Is it something that's harmful to my body? Then why am I saying I deserve it? Right? I just really started catching certain phrases that I got trained to, that I practiced, that were leading me to think self-indulgence is self-care, right? Loving myself started to become about how can I give my body what it needs to be well? I'm in my mid-60s now. Life doesn't look very bright if I equate self-indulgent with self-care. It was a lie. I also had the chance in my This Naked Mind coach training was a woman who was an alcohol marketing director. And she said, we sat around plotting about ways to get more women into the alcohol market. So we're We're marketing to children and adolescents, right? We're marketing to older women who never drank much before this. And I saw that a lot, that a lot of older women were taking up drinking in later life. And it was really, I feel like it stole my mom's health way too soon. But their focus was, we need to increase demand, right? And we know people will get addicted to this. It's just like the cigarette industry. If you look at ads selling alcohol, it's like they're selling beauty, they're selling sex and popularity and fun and rest and vacation, not an addictive drug. If you haven't seen the Nuggets video on YouTube, go look for that. It really compellingly shows, it's this very brief 5-minute video, but it really shows what it's like to quite quickly get very addicted to a substance like this, right? And how it takes our lives. So in any case, getting really clear I was getting really clear how my alcohol use had increased. So I was drinking more than I wanted to drink. It was getting harder and harder to just have a glass of wine. And then it was getting hard to stop at 2. And then it was getting hard to stop at 3, right? And the effect of alcohol on my neurochemistry was driving me to drink more and more. It was making it more important than I wanted it to be. And I was feeling like I had less and less choice about my drinking. So if you're in the place I was in, and this is 6 years ago or so for me, if you're getting more committed to eating healthy and releasing excess weight, it's a very good idea to put alcohol in its place. Or if you're just feeling like, I don't want alcohol to have this role in my life, I don't want it to be so important, I don't want to be so driven towards it, I don't want to be so upset about it, I don't want to be so upset with myself, I don't want to be thinking about it so much. I want it to have a small and irrelevant role in my life, or no role in my life. Just get out. I'm amazed. Changing my eating and drinking just opened up hours and hours of time and energy every day. I wake up every day still feeling grateful. Oh, I just feel good. I just feel human, right? I feel like I can do whatever I want with my life instead of, how quick can I get to the drink? So as I got more serious about trying to reclaim my healthy body and my bright future, I wanted to be this person who was still hiking in the mountains in my 80s, and I already couldn't hike in the mountains in my 50s. I got more serious about questioning the role of alcohol and the idea that I'll just moderate, I'll just drink less, I'll just put some rules around it. I wanted to seriously see, can I feel a lot better? Can I have a lot better confidence that I'll still be hiking in the mountains in my 80s? And I just started feeling like, you're fooling yourself if you think there's a role for alcohol in your diet and you're going to have a great future. It's just so much more toxic than I used to realize. And I started realizing I only thought about moderating foods and drinks that were bad for me. So this whole beautiful idea of how great moderation is only seemed to apply to things that are bad for me. Like, I know this is bad for me. I know these donuts are bad for me, but I'm just gonna not have too many. I'll just really limit how many I have them. I know alcohol's bad for me, but I'm just gonna try to not do too much of the bad stuff. So every time I thought about moderation, I was only thinking about something bad for me. And I started realizing maybe I just don't wanna ingest the things that are bad for me. Maybe I'm fooling myself that my body's gonna keep being fine, because it wasn't, right? I only thought about moderating things that I tended to overindulge in, that I couldn't stop. I had trouble moderating, that I felt really emotionally attached to, right? If somebody said, you're going to have to give up Brussels sprouts altogether, I wouldn't have this big emotional reaction. But if they said, you're going to have to give up donuts, or you're going to have to give up alcohol, what do you mean? Like, okay. So I only want to moderate things I have that kind of emotional attachment to. Sounds like an addiction, dopamine. So whether it's food or drink, the idea of everything in moderation may not be serving us. It may be serving these profit-driven industries. We might be able to get way better health and energy and self-determination and freedom when we just decide to abstain, right? So I invite you, if you haven't, start considering an extended period of abstinence. Like, let your brain heal from the overexcited, driven, anxious approach to alcohol, right? And it may mean you're also, now you start being overexcited and driven towards sugar. So notice how similar that reaction is. Consider a period of abstinence from sugar and other highly processed foods too. Now, it does mean there's a big secret here. You're going to have to replace the junky stuff that has been, like the research shows, on average, about 60% of our diet is highly processed, non-nutritious food-like substances, most, right? So if you start taking these things out, you're going to need to replace it with highly nutritious foods like fruits and vegetables. So you don't just feel more hungry. That'll change your whole life, I can tell you. Your brain is going to heal with a period of abstinence from the toxic, addictive stuff, right? That overexcited, dopamine down-regulated state will start healing. Your gut microbiome will start healing, right? When we're doing a lot of eating junky stuff or drinking alcohol, we're killing a lot of the good bacteria in our gut. The bad bacteria are yelling for more. They're part of it's our brain and it's our gut yelling for more of the junk. That will stop happening, and that will start reconstituting your hormone functioning. You know, how you store fat or use or burn fat will change. Your cortisol functioning will change, and your recognition of I'm actually not hungry right now. Those hormones will turn around. So feelings of hunger and anxiety will start to really go away. Even our taste buds heal within 2 weeks of taking a break from processed foods. So we're getting into my specialization here. I help especially women who are tired of trying to lose weight and nothing's working anymore. They want to figure out, how do I actually eat healthy and lose weight that way, right? And that, to me, that's the only way to do it, to get sustainable weight loss. That's what I see in the research. Maybe you can even start craving the things that are good for your body. That's what I discovered, and it's gorgeous. It starts with getting really clear exactly how to eat to get predictable results. If you want to learn more about this, go to slenderforgood.com. That's my website. You can get my free roadmap to sustainable weight loss after 40. You can get notified about upcoming free events, because I have to tell you, you might feel scared. Changing all these things feels like I'm going to lose a lot. You gain so much more. All right, I appreciate you guys being here with me. I didn't mean to take so long. It is a topic I'm really passionate about, if you couldn't tell. Reach out to me if you'd like to have more dialogue about this. I love hearing what other people are figuring out. All right, take care, you guys. See ya.